Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and we got a really special treat for you. We're on location today. We're at Burbank's House of Hobbies, one of the great hobby shops, certainly in California. Love going to places like this. There aren't enough places like this. And this is Jon Tamkin. Jon, you're the founder and owner of Mission Models. You guys make model paints. You've been making model paints for how long now?
The paint line itself has been around for, I'd say, a little over 6 years now. And so that was something that we were going to develop many, many years ago. Couldn't come up with the right formulas, the right technologies, and so forth. Put it on the back burner. And then many years later, I decided to go back and sort of revisit that and kind of just, stars aligned, so to speak. And we developed the paint.
Amazing. And paint is what we're talking about today because, we build models at Tested. A lot of you build models as well. More people are getting into 3D printing. They're building very easily accessible, like Star Wars kits, Gundam kits, which come, tinted out of the box. They look okay when you put them together, but it always feels like that, like a daunting next step to put some paint on it. And so we wanted to get some advice and talk about the process of how do you get started painting your models.
So there's trial and error involved. There's the learning process, and the more you do it and the more consistent you are, the better you get, and the easier and the more second nature it becomes. There's a million different brands of paints, styles of paints. There's hobby paints, there's house paints. Craft paints. Paint's been around forever. You got synthetic pigments, you got organic pigments, all that kind of stuff. Lacquers, enamels, acrylics.
Absolutely.
It's endless.
Yeah.
Our line comprises of 212, different items. It's, paint, primers, metallics, weathering colors, thinners, polymix additive. All that kind of stuff. So it adds up there to the 212 right now. What we find is that, and I know from experience as well, is that people tend to gravitate towards the same colors. So the line is comprehensive, but it's not excessive. We've basically focused on core subject matter. So of course you've got, your, Allied armor, German aircraft, German armor, U.S. modern jets, but there's a lot of unique colors, construction equipment colors. It really is, like I said, it's comprehensive. So ultimately colors are colors, and you have to kind of think outside the box. So just because, for example, this bottle here says interior intermediate blue, FS35164. This color is amazing for a million different things. This here happens to be our highway yellow, which is technically old cat yellow from 1930 to 1990, essentially. But it's a great color, it's muted, it's great for off-road vehicles, it's great for model railroading, it's great for sci-fi. You can use these colors for anything. But at the same time, a lot of Gundams, on the other hand, the basis of the colors stem from military colors.
Yeah.
So if you take a traditional Zaku in the dark, that kind of pale green, dark green, two-tone color, those are both RAF colors.
It's perfect because when those series were coming out, you're talking about both the historical based models, but also maybe something out of fiction, out of science fiction. When those series were coming out, when people were making Star Wars and Star Trek, the model makers were pulling from those same colors as well. So you're saying there's maybe not need to develop something specific for that because you're kind of going to the source.
Correct.
And so someone, built their first model, maybe built a couple models, did a couple 3D prints. They walk into a shop, what are they picking up? Are they picking up primers, picking up base colors, and you guys also make some mixes? What are the kind of the essentials that people should be picking up to start?
Well, first things first, and it's a good question, always use the manufacturer's recommended thinner because they work best with the product. If you're starting out, I recommend thinner or polymix additive. So this is basically a polyurethane mix additive that goes into the paint. You mix it into the paint, approximately 10% to volume of paint. And what the poly does is it turns the paint into a urethane-based automotive grade acrylic finish. And it's absolutely tough as nails. We put into everything that we spray. Now, Mission Models paint can be brush painted as well. But whenever we, airbrush anything, we always put the poly in. It's like butter on bread. Why wouldn't you put butter on bread? Right?
It's long lasting. It's just
And so what it does is it it dries from the inside out. It's very easy to put into the paint, right? So what it then does is it increases your durability. So that's great for, war gamers, fantasy gamers, model railroad, anybody that's handling a model,
Right.
right? And it does take, 24 hours to technically cure within the paint. But what's also great about the poly is that people that are doing 3D printing, also, whether it's a resin print, filament print, this will allow you to paint on more challenging materials, such as the resins, filaments, Lexan, leather, all sorts of stuff. I mean, stuff that you're not even supposed to paint, and it's not coming off, right? So that's what's great about the poly.
And then, picking a selection of paints, you guys have, 212 different colors. Is there a base set of colors you recommend, and people start with that and then mix from that, or is it kind of dependent on the genre that they're painting in? Like, what's your advice there?
We put together the line very, very carefully, based on what we know people use for the most part. But we organize everything by segment. So all your metallics are right here. There's 10 different metallics. Then for the most part, all your what we call primary colors, even though brown's not really technically a color of the rainbow, we call them primaries because those are your base colors, black, white, red, brown, orange, green, that kind of stuff. You're your core basic colors. But then it goes, all your, World War II German aircraft are kind of grouped together, Allied armor, German armor, US modern jets, World War II aircraft. I mean, it's so when you go to pick out your paint and with the, FS, RAL or RLM codes, they're all there. So you can easily select what you're looking for and easily find it. We make it as easy as possible and as organized as possible on the display rack, especially for, someone that's just starting out. They can just go and be like, oh, look at all these olive drabs. Oh, look at all these World War II aircraft colors or whatever it might be. Pearls, iridescence, color change. I mean, you name it. It's pretty much all there.
And trust the reference number, trust the reference sheet that you're getting with your model kit, and grab the section. You don't need to have 100 bottles to start. You can get whatever you need. That's recommended. And well, I'd love to get a demo because, like you mentioned, we did grab a model kit off the shelf here and want to show, and I want to see how easy it is to mix in the paint and get it on some plastic.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it.
Okay, John, so we took out a couple pieces of Bandai model kit. This is Boba Fett's Slave 1. We see that comes out pre-tinted, so there's already some color on it.
Correct.
And you found some colors that basically match that. That's going to give the modeler a chance to just take their own approach to it.
Correct. And what we're going to do is we are going to paint this part, which is part of the upper superstructure, right? We're going to use MMP number 80, which is RAF Underside Sky, number 610. But you can see also we have matched up where it says Mecha Pale Green, right? Because this is also a great color for the Zaku's, and it happens to be
looks great. Wow, looks really good.
There,
yep.
Right? But what we're going to do is we're going to prime first. So let's get started with the priming, and we've got our Mission Models gray primer here. Now we have a YouTube channel which has, mixing ratios tutorials. The tutorials are like an hour long each, but for this, demo, I'm just going to really show you how easy it really is. So I'm going to just squirt some primer in there. The primer needs to be thinned. You can see how thick it is out of the bottle, right? So I'm going to take our primer, and for the sake of this demo, we're just going to, just put some drops in there, and I'm going to just mechanically stir it with my hand like this. We mix everything in 1 ounce epoxy mixing cups. It's really the way to go. You really, in theory, don't want to mix in the airbrush because you don't get a thorough and proper mix. And you can kind of see, some people go by the skim milk, this or that. I'm just doing this all by eye. And to me, that looks really good. Really, to get your absolutely best mixes is to do like this, let it sit for 10, 15 minutes so everything emulsifies and it's thorough. I've got my primer here. And what I always say is test before you spray. So I've adjusted, I'm using a Mac valve here, right?
What are you looking for here when you're looking for
I'm
that
looking
test
for
spray?
a nice, even, smooth spray pattern. That's what I'm looking for. If my PSI is too low, let's just say, it's gonna, well, either you're gonna get nothing or it's just gonna start to sputter because you don't have enough air pressure. So I will adjust it so I get that nice, even pass, right? So this is gray primer. And I'm probably sure I'll spray my fingers here. And we're gonna just spray nice, even, what we call light, wet, methodical coats. You can see how it just covers right up. This goes on like a nice second skin. It'll shrink down.
Still retain all that detail.
Retain all the detail. So you can see how fast I'm going. Now the primer will technically speaking, be dry in 12 hours. But that doesn't mean that you can't accelerate the drying with cool air and keep on working. But it's thoroughly cured, scientifically cured. 12 hours, give or take, all right? And as usual, spraying right over my fingers. It's been an issue my whole life. Now, the most important thing is the maintenance of your tools. So this is just a squirt bottle with water. And we're going to take a little bit of thinner.
Which also works as a cleaner.
And get a little thinner in there. Primer is very, very durable. And then we'll just kind of wipe out any residual. And we're going we're going fast, but you can see it's clean and it's ready to go. A lot of people have asked about dry sanding and so forth. And you can see, look at that. I mean, that is like just really smooth. I mean, that's like a second skin. Have to be careful here because it's not thoroughly dry, but yeah, you can. I like to dry sand personally. Like if you had any anomalies, any kind of little whatever, little piece of dust, whatever, you dropped it, picked up a bunch of stuff from the carpet, you could just go ahead and, sand it right out. The smoother your finish, the smoother your base coats, the better your top coats and your overall finish. So our next step, right, is, let's see, we are going to do the green.
Here's what I'm really curious about, that mixing of the poly.
Yep, we are absolutely going to put that in there. So this is the RAF underside sky. The code would be 610, the technical code. This is MMP number 80. So I'm just going to go like this, squirt a little bit in there, right? A little paint. I like to use enough to work with. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our poly, right? And I'm just going to go like that. So you can see that in there.
It's about 10% ratio?
About that, just a little bit, I just put a little bit more in for good measure. Why not? Show you.
At what point does it start to be not the consistency you want, or?
Well, you can over thin it. You never want to thin your, the paints, or at least our paints, 50-50, meaning 1-to-1, because, everything is so powerful that it'll thin it down just like food dye. And you don't want runs, right? Just pour a little bit in there. Test shot. You want to spray through any residual from your cleaning. Get rid of any water, excess thinner, anything like that. Because if you don't spray that through on your next color, you'll hit the model with it. So we are going to go back and we are going to do this upper superstructure, right? Nice, even, what we like to call light, wet coats. So you can see where it looks shiny, but it's not running, but it's not dry. If you spray from too far away, you're going to end up over-atomizing the paint, which means that it's going to dry in the air and you're going to lose your adhesion properties. So it's very, very quick, very, very easy. Kind of like a wet sidewalk. A wet sidewalk looks dark because it's wet. As the water evaporates out of the concrete, it'll go back to its lighter state. Well, that's the same thing with the paint. When it's wet, it's going to appear to be a little bit darker. As it cures, it'll dry to its proper color.
How many coats do you feel comfortable applying before you feel like you might lose some panel line detail?
A lot.
Yeah.
Seriously, a lot. You'll know, but you can go, and with proper thinning, which you could see how easy it was, I mean, all of that's still there. Again, we are going to clean. I like to use a hard stream. These are just Zepp water bottles, and this is just straight water. So spray out the bulk out of the cup, right? Spray that through. I mean, that's basically clean with just a little bit of water. We'll go in and wipe that out, and then, but you know, to flush through anything else, just a little bit of our thinner. Spray that through. You know, PSI is also very important when you're spraying. You want to spray the paint between 10 and 15 PSI. You know, if you have a larger needle nozzle set up on your airbrush, you know, you'll want to go a little bit higher. You know, kind of sort of like a garden hose principle, that if you have a, you know, large opening, you might need more, you know, water pressure. So that's the green. For the red, we're going to use the German red oxide, which is MMP number 13. And we take a nice fresh mixing cup, okay? And I'm just going to show you how easy it is, like that. I mean, that's plenty, and a little bit more. I'm just eyeballing everything. Poly.
That's the practice.
That's how you do it. It's called time, practice, and patience, experience. I'll even add a little bit more. Why not? Paint is very, very, very forgiving. And it's gonna, a little bit.
Yeah, don't stress about the ratios, but know those hard limits.
Yes. Now this could possibly be a little bit thin. Maybe. But let's just say it's a little bit too thin. You can tell by looking at it. Let's add a little more paint. And it's like I say, people waste paint. I waste paint. We all waste paint.
If you're gonna buy it, you gotta use it.
And I can tell you, I won't use all that.
Yeah. What's a question I have as well? You know, people buy these ounce bottles of paint. They wonder how long it's gonna last. Sometimes the paint sits because they're buying a bunch of colors. You know, how should people store their paints? What's the process of making sure they do last?
Well, you have to take care of all paint, no matter what. All chemicals, it doesn't matter what it is. Now, you know, with our paints, with proper care and storage, right? In a normal working environment, normal temperature, you know, there really isn't a shelf life. But you really, you know, you have to be aware. And it doesn't matter if it's a lacquer, if it's an enamel, anything. You just have to maintain, you know, your supplies. Now, the poly, for example, now you don't want to let these freeze, and you don't want to let them cook off in you know, extreme high heat, you know, for extended period of time. You know, leaving them in your garage, you know, where it gets 110 degrees if you happen to be somewhere like that, or letting them continuously freeze on end, you know, in a cold region. It's just proper maintenance is really what it's about. You know, we have bottles that we still use from 2015, 2016. A lot of people do, and it's great. Now, with the poly, again, you don't want to let it freeze. You don't want to let it cook over. These are all different types of chemicals, and they all have their own, you know, basic properties. That's just the nature of poly, because once they freeze, you can't bring them back. And that's the same thing with like yellow glues. You can't let yellow glue freeze. CA glues will kick over in high heat. So chemicals are chemicals, and they have to be treated as such. And
mix it well before you pour it in.
Yep. Shake it, mix it. You know, if you're in a cold region and the paint feels slightly, how would I put this? Coagulated, kind of like chilled bacon fat. It's the only way I can kind of put it. Or like if you had melted butter and you put it in the fridge and it starts to kind of solidify. The paint's not going to solidify, but you can warm it back up to room temp, and it'll, you know, it'll be great. No issues at all. So, and you can do, you know, nice fine lines with it. You know, no clogging. A lot of misconceptions about acrylics. You know, I guess this is why we use, you know, the most modern, you know, resins and carriers for this reason. Now, always spray, do a little test before you actually spray your next part. Let's say it's very humid out, or you got the windows open and it's just super dry. You just want to kind of double check. We happen to have a perfect environment today. So the temperature's great, everything's great, it's low humidity, everything's good. So no issues. You can see how wet that is.
Yeah.
So now don't try and necessarily cover in just one pass. I'm going to hit this with the hair dryer real quick, and then we'll do our second pass. But yeah, so there you go. There's your green and the poly. And depending on how you apply, you can feel that. Go ahead. Well, it's still a little bit tacky, but you know, once it cools a bit, because I was using, you know, slightly warm air, we could keep on, you know, we could keep on building, keep on painting, doing all that kind of stuff. You can mask right over it with proper, you know, when you get that nice light wet finish, right? That's what also gives you your adhesion properties. If you spray back here, you know, the paint's drying in the air. If your PSI is too high, again, you could be over atomizing at the tip. If you're getting what's called bounce back and you're getting clouds, your PSI is too high. One of the best ways, and just real quick, and you know, I guess we'll wrap it up. One of the best ways to determine your distance is, okay, so I have air, right? You can maybe hear the air. You hear it?
Oh, it changed. Yeah, you can actually hear the difference.
Hear that? Now let's start spraying. Beautiful. See, there's no clouds, there's nothing.
That's great. I didn't notice, just listening to the way the air comes out of the airbrush and hits the model.
Okay, back here.
Right there.
Right. Here's just kind of your sweet spot.
That's great. Wow. That's really cool, John.
So, I mean, time, practice, and patience.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're always learning, and there's people out there that will support you and help you. And, you know, when you're asking questions, and that's just a little, you know, thing. If I would go in here and I sit here like this, I could end up with all this buildup. You see, now it's like pooling up here. But if I let it just sit, everything will self-level.
That's amazing. Well,
usually.
Yes, yeah. Time, practice, and patience. We'll remember that for sure. John, thank you so much for that demonstration. It really was simple and fast, like you said, and people can go to your YouTube channel, Mission Models YouTube channel, and see more tutorials.
Absolutely. And we have tons of FAQs on our website. There's lots of people out there that are using paint. You can watch this little demo, like I said, the FAQs, the YouTube channel, all that good stuff. Yeah. And so this was really fun. And, you know, I really want to say, you know, thank you.
Thank you.